1926, they discovered the perfect trap. 40 hours keeps you alive, but too tired to escape.
Wow.
Henry Ford ran the numbers. He tested different work schedules and found the sweet spot. 40 hours. Not because it's optimal for productivity, because it's optimal for control. Let's do the math. 40 hours work, 10 hours commuting, 56 hours sleeping, 14 hours for eating, showering, basic survival. That's 120 hours, leaving you 48 hours of free time. Except you're exhausted. So you spend Saturday recovering from the week, and Sunday dreading Monday. Your weekend isn't freedom, it's recovery time, so you can do it again. Monday morning, the alarm goes off, and you feel it, that existential dread. 5 days until freedom. 5 days of giving your life away. For what? A paycheck that disappears instantly. Rent, bills, food, loans. Nothing left. You want to start that business? Too tired. Learn that skill? Too tired. Build that project? Too tired. That's not an accident. That's the design. If you had energy left over, you'd leave. If you had money left over, you'd build something. If you had time left over, you'd organize. They can't let that happen. So they found the formula. Just enough money to survive, just enough time to not completely break, just enough energy to come back tomorrow, but never enough to escape. And then they tell you, work hard for 45 years, then you can retire. So you do it. You trade your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s for a paycheck. At 65, you're free. Except your body's broken, your energy's gone. You spent your best years building someone else's dream, and your freedom came too late to use it. The 40-hour work week isn't about productivity, it's about compliance. Keep you tired, keep you poor, keep you busy. Too exhausted to think, too broke to leave, too busy to organize. That's not employment, that's control, and you'll do it for the next 45 years, unless you break or escape. But you won't, because you can't afford to. That's the trap.
Now, if you paid close attention to this video right now, you'll notice something. The trap was not out there. It was the story you believed about yourself from day one. And if this itch, I got a free workbook called The Purpose Alignment Starter Kit. It's going to help you break out of that story. The link is in my bio. Go grab it and see you on the next one.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to K&J What 5HT channel on YouTube, where the what stands for World, Health, Academia, and Times. And those 5 H's that we always talk about is when you're having difficulties dealing with truth. That means the H's, the truth can hurt. And then the truth is hard. Ultimately, the truth helps, it heals, and it's healthy. Those are what we deal with on this channel here. It's been a minute since we came to you guys, so we've been trying to reboot. But today marks a pretty monumental day, a milestone, I'll say, for our channel. 1 year in, right now. And I tend to say 1 year removed, a nation wounded still. And, we deal with the generational gaps here, where we deal with each prospective generation starting with 1901 to 1927, which is called the greatest generation. Then it moves down to the silent generation, which is 1928 to 1945. From there, we go to the baby boomers from 1946 to 1964, moving into Gen X from 1965 to 1980. And that moves us to the millennials from 1981 to 1996 We deal with Gen Z from 1997 to 2012, and we rolled over to Generation Alpha from 2013, and probably a few years removed. Now we're going to beta. I don't even want to discuss that right now. We have too much going on within the perspective generations that I just mentioned. Let's just do this for a start here. I just want to say a few things. A lot of things has happened since we last posted. Of course, the media is still going haywire as usual, serving us on a platter those things in which they desire to dictate and how we move. However, I want to deal with a word called perception. Perception is really, really big in everyone's life. It's all about how you perceive. One might see one thing and another might see something else. What we began to try to understand is what's true and what's untrue. That's where our divide began. Perception, a key word. Yeah. I had someone tell me about the my frames, my eyewear. And when I first started the channel, I said, you know what? I said, maybe one day I will remove them. Because, a lot of times people say I can't see you. So, and my thing was, well, I can't see you until I can see you where I desire to see you. And I think we should be, as a nation, as a people. Only then, and then will I reveal. But until then, I had somebody say those glasses put me in a mindset of Jim Jones. For those of you that don't know about Jim Jones, he was he was not a good person. He did some really, really underhanded things. However, I'm far removed from a Jim Jones. Very far removed. I'm not into manipulating. I'm not into deception. I'm not into none of those things. However, back to the word perception. That's the way one might see me. And another might see me in another way. This word perception is really big. We have to understand it and its true meaning. I mean, after vetted, it's really true meaning. Now, I just want to say something. We've been going through a few things. It's been a couple of times where I've had to come before you guys where I suffered a loss in my family. However, Kay has suffered a loss in her family, and it's been really something. How you have to continue life after the loss of a loved one, and how does one do that? I watched her strength. I watched her as she grow, continue to move like she moved in silence. A lot of times not seen, faintly heard at moments. I've always said I was going to try to get her to get behind the camera. But at the beginning of when we started this a year ago, if you can remember, I was calling her Mystery Kay because everybody was, does she really exist? Yes, she does exist. All the editing, everything that you see to go about with this particular channel here, Kay Hands makes it happen. Yes, her know-how and knowledge, computer savviness makes it happen. Very underestimated young lady. But I can tell you, very much in high demand, even at this point in time right now, as she suffered the loss of her aunt. And I wanted to say something to the Harris family in such a time like this. It's a time for us really to come together. The division is already strong and bad enough. Let us fight through adversity, especially at a sensitive time like this. Everybody have their own way of grieving, and one may not understand the other one. Perception, once again. However, allow that space, allow that time, allow that moment for grieving and healing and coming to grips to that loss, but keeping a memory not only in your mind but in your heart of everything that you shared together, you experienced together for the children or siblings. Come together for the sisters that's going to be missing a part of them that they grew up with. Stay focused. For the nephew and nieces, even the grandkids, it's your time now. They're watching you. I'm talking to the elder now, the sisters, the brothers, the aunts, the uncles, the older cousins. The children are watching you now. We in this generational thing. Again, what do you show them at a moment like this? What do you show them in a time like this? To help them understand when faced with adversity, especially this, because we're all terminal. We're not meant to survive in this shell forever. But there's an inner spirit or inner energy that resides and lives inside of this shell. It lives on. Whether you want to see it as spirit or energy, regardless, perception again. Energy never dies. Remember that. And according to what some may hold to in their belief, they understand that the spirit never dies. So how do we distinguish the difference between the two? Perception, once again. I want to read this. I'm just going to get this off the top. This is for Kels and her family. And this is from us, from the K&J What 5HT channel. I just want to leave this with you guys. Hold to this. It's Isaiah 26. I'm going to read verse 2 and 3. It say, open ye the gates, that the righteous nation which keepeth the truth may enter in. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusted in thee. Mm-hmm. Trust in that one that can give you the perfect peace. The world did not come to give you or serve you peace. Don't look for it out there. Your inner peace is that one that have power over soul and spirit. So if you may, just hold to that. Be encouraged. I know it could be a tough time right now, but I just wanted to get that out the way. This is for Kay, one that we often hear me speak of, but you rarely hear her voice. Maybe a couple of times earlier in our posts. Like I say, we're a year in now, and but her hand always touches the work. I've always said that I was gonna deal with this, her writing, because she's a writer as well. So let us do something. We're gonna deal with this writing from Kay that she did a couple of months ago when we did a post. It was right at the right at the door of Mother's Day, if I can remember, before we did this post. But she did this writing, and we posted it on the end of a few of our last posts that we uploaded. But it's probably difficult to read it because it's moved so fast. So what I want to do is take my time, and I want to share this reading with you guys. And this is through the lenses and the eyes or the mind of Kay as she speaks on each perspective generation, and I mentioned on the opening of this post here, the greatest generation, the silent reserve, the baby boomers, the Gen Xers, the millennials, the Gen Zers. Let's see what Kelsey had to say. And it reads, "Hey, it's Kay. Remember the 5 H's while reading this. The truth is hard, hurtful, helpful, healthy, and healing. And for a while now, I've realized my voice lives mainly through ink, pen, pencil, keyboard, whichever I can find to decide. Not to hide, not always spoken. At times, the tongue trembles. It's a silent humbling while the writing lingers. Speaking on millennials, pointing fingers at Gen Z, calling baby boomers hardened, feeling like Gen X is detached. Let's do something. Understand to be understood. Research. Walk with the Most High. Blame desires one side. Can it be? They are emotionally ecosystems. Living evidence of what survival looks like during different seasons of humanity. The silent generation, we must implore the generation before them, the GI generation, aka greatest generation. Close your eyes for a moment. Step into human shoes, size, reality. Tie up your humility. Lace and place them on a new set of factual lenses. Every generation entered carrying luggage not packed alone. The biology of trauma was already rooted in the DNA. The curse was already initiated. The weight of war, silence, survival, abandonment, technology moving faster than human spirit could keep up with. But greatness is a heavy title. Forged in blood, deceit, trauma, slavery, gaps too big to ignore, rations, wars, empty stomachs, and goodbye letters that never made it home. The list is too long. This was the generation taught bury emotions beneath duty before you go home. We know you're human, but at the door is where all that baggage belongs. This was a people taught to swallow fear before breakfast and bury grief before supper. Men became survivalists. Women became weathered and toughened by circumstance. Of course, children learn early the fragileness of innocence. Be home before the street light come on. Not anymore. From that soil, every generation grew after like a plant, eager to shed its leaves and grow anew and bury a new root to sprout a different kind of beauty. The silent generation became whisperers in human form. What hobbies? Less speak or speak less, endure more, feel quietly, especially if your life depended on it. Baby boomers became hard workers and great thinkers, fueled with a mighty fire, ignited before the expansion of silence before them, between rebellion and consumption to which cause. They saw how quickly voices got lost, even eliminated. Boomers' strictness was always meant to be guidance, yet delivered like a half-full bottle. Builders of economies, movements, neighborhoods, corps, and culture. The key to structure. Yet, somewhere between prosperity and pressure, the unspoken exhaustion, softness got lost. How much were they allowed to feel or heal? Gen X, latchkey, emotional independent, watching or partaking in a rush of drugs, disco, fun, and surviving as best possible. But again, the curse was already set. The DNA is now tainted by drugs, chemically following generations to come. House keys around their neck, emotions locked behind their heart, strong enough to survive alone. Do not heal out loud, please. Millennials became the bridge generation, raised on promises. The hopes and dream has only to inherit a mental collapse. Old enough to remember dial tones, handwritten notes, and human connection untouched by algorithm. AI? Here's a kicker. AI hasn't been around before boomers. Yet young enough to be thrown headfirst into a digital world moving faster than the nervous system could catch up to. How much do we understand about the nervous system? If understood, how much do we take seriously? Spiritually even, energy even. We'll get there if we want to. Millennials told generation told to dream bigger. The sky's the limit, right? Watching mental exhaustion normalized. Millennials became translators caught between two worlds. Get the confusion? One foot in humanity, yet recall the curse was already set in place. 1 foot in hyperconnectivity, innovation, emotionally aware, adaptive, creative enough to rebuild with nothing. Yet anxious and overstimulated, burnt out from performing strength while privately unraveling. Generation Z arrived hyper aware. Children raised beneath bright screens and breaking headlines. Taught activism before childhood. Visibility before identity. Awareness before emotional stability. Fearlessly expressive. Creative. Fast thinking. Socially conscious. Yet drowning in comparison. Overstimulation. Loneliness. And the pressure to become someone before discovering who they truly are. Oh no. And Generation Alpha may become fluent in tech, but starving for presence. Every generation inherits both a gift and a curse. Some inherited discipline, but lost softness. Freedom, but lost direction. connection to the world, but disconnected from self. Somewhere along the way, humanity stopped sitting with itself, relaxed on its shelf. We learned to scroll faster than we learned how to heal. Branding before productivity while starving emotionally. Overinformed, yet spiritually exhausted. Where the hell was the peace for any generation? The power of rest, relaxation, and peace? Attention granted before affection, overexposed yet unseen. Overstimulated yet emotionally numb. Spiritually thirsty in a world overflowing with too much noise. Overstimulated yet emotionally numb. And now here we stand. Generations staring at one another from opposite sides of a river. Each side believing the other simply chose wrong. While ignoring the storm, they survived just to stay afloat. And now here we stand. Generations staring at one another like strangers on opposite sides of a river. Each believing the other side simply chose wrong and differently, wanted to hurt you. Not the case for some. While ignoring the storm, they survive just to stay afloat. You the problem. But what are you? Who is the solution? What is the solution? We get the history now? Do not come after me, because while ignoring the storm, each side survived just to get there. Pain changes language. Pain changes parenting. Pain changes love. Pain changes entire people, generations. Man. So after the blame is done, after the 5 H's is initiated and witnessing what can we actually become, understand the weather in each other's storm. We read it again. Because if we examine the wounds, including the greatness of each gen, we would have known just where to begin. Or continue handing our children trauma wrapped like pagan gifts. Listen. So the question is no longer just who ruined society. The story was already written before the characters before us came into play. The real question is, which gap are you filling? Which gap are you willing to fill? Will you become a bridge? Or will slumber be the decider for you? And she ends with Happy Mother's Day to every woman out there. You are amazing everyday ladies. Check out the history and treat yourself to a spa. Moments. Thank for your time. In the words of Kay. Wonderfully written. We talked about it a little bit. I don't know how long it took her to actually pen this. but I know she does write. I don't know what you guys got out of it. I just try to present it the best I know how. I'm more than certain she could have done a lot better because it's her writing, it's her feelings, it's her thoughts, it's her emotions. I just tried to present what I thought and what I see. What I hear. A lot of times people are underestimated when they're not seen. And if they're not as outspoken in times, they're also underappreciated, not noticed, pretty much invisible. I spoke at the beginning and I call her Mystery K, but she does exist. These are her writings. Maybe she can expound on how she came with this, but I thought it to be magnificent, man. She dealt with each generation. She dealt with the greatest generation, Gen Z, and she just spoke on, but greatness is a heavy title. That was what she used. And when I think about the greatest generation, I know they dealt with World War II. The Silent Generation dealt with World War I. This is a war over in the European countries, had pretty much nothing to do with a person in my community, although people in my community were involved in those wars, or those conflicts. But I have to say this. She spoke on how each generation would be blaming and pointing fingers on who should have, could have done what, and how they would have handled it in maybe in their time had they been there. But that's hypothetical. You wouldn't know unless you were there. The climate was different. Timing was different. Everything was different. The greatest generation probably didn't go to the grocery store every day like this generation we see today, even ourselves. Most of the things they had, they probably produced and grew their own self. Stronger generation, stronger people, more survival mode, less dependent on a people to tell them when, where, how, what to do, and how to think, as we do in this day and time, for the people that we often put in place to give us those orders. And yes, we put them in place to give us those orders. I look at how she spoke of the curse, and when she was speaking, and she said every generation entered carrying luggage not packed alone. The biology of trauma was already rooted in the DNA. The curse was already initiated. Made me think about Deuteronomy 28. The do's and the don'ts. And if you do this, what happened? And if you don't, this would happen. Yeah, I know most people don't believe. You don't have to. You caught up in it. I'm not suggesting that one group of people is cursed. So don't get it twisted. However, if you look at the results for the do's and don'ts, what would happen to those who do and those who do not? Do the math. Check it out for yourself. See, does it affect anyone in your community in such a way? The curse was already initiated. And like I said, she was speaking on the greatest generation. And I look at how she said, well, greatness is a heavy title. And why would she say that? She said because they were forged in blood, deceit, trauma, slavery, gaps too big to ignore, rations, wars, empty stomach, and goodbye letters that never made it home. The list is too long. They went through so much. So you know anything about those goodbye letters that never made it home? The only way you're going to know about the goodbye letters that never made it home, you got to research World War I and World War II. She spoke so eloquently in poetry, and poetry is in motion. Even poetry through not only writings, but songs. Remember? Before a song is actually stamped and trademarked and copyrighted as a song, it becomes poetry first. That's for those that didn't know. And as I often say, that quote, give me control of the nation's music, and I care not who makes its laws. She spoke on how the generations taught to bury their emotions. She's still talking about the greatest generation, how they was taught to bury their emotions beneath duty and before you go home. And she said stuff like, we know you're human, but at the door is where all that baggage belongs. That was the tough part. They toughened you up in those days. You were tough. I know you're human. I know you're going through this. I know you're going through that, but you leave that at the door. We got something else we dealing with. I need you to focus on what we dealing with here. Leave the baggage at the door. And she said this people was taught to swallow fear before breakfast and bury grief before supper. Can you deal with that? Can you deal with that? Swallow fear before breakfast and bury grief before supper. That's big, especially if you're dealing with a loved one that you're sending off somewhere and you have no idea whether they'll ever return or not. But however, get past that. Focus at what's on hand right now, that which is in front of us. And she spoke on how the men became survivalists and the women became weathered and toughened by circumstance. And of course, children learn the early fragileness of innocence. When you expose children to that which they don't quite understand, then now you're going into a whole new frame of living, a whole new frame of grooming, a whole new frame of actually molding one to be as if you would desire them to be. And she talked about the boomers, how they were hard workers, the builders of economies, movements. They key to structure, yet somewhere between prosperity and pressure, the unspoken exhaustion, softness got lost. See? How much were they allowed to feel or heal is the question she asked. And then, which is big for me, when she got to Gen X, she said Gen X, emotionally independent, watching or partakers of the rush of drugs, disco, and surviving as best possible. But again, the curse was already set. The DNA is now tainted by drugs, chemically following generations to come. And we trying to understand how we get here, a gap, how we don't understand one another, how we continue to point fingers and blame one another. And she spoke on how the Gen X, the house and key around their neck, emotionally locked behind the hearts, strong enough to survive alone. Do not heal out loud, please. what you've witnessed that was passed on to you from boomers, you hold that to yourself. Focus on the task at hand. Don't heal out loud. And now we injured. A nation wounded, as K speak. A nation wounded. The curse was already set. He's calling us cursed. I'm not calling you cursed. You don't have to be that. But if you choose, you can. And trust me, every curse that mentioned will fall at your door. Yes, it will. There's no way around it. You don't have to believe what you hear. You don't have to believe what is said. Perception. What do you see now? What do you see in this image? Perception. And man, as she moved on and said the millennials became the bridge generation, raised on promises, the hope and dream had only to inherit mental collapse. And then she said that they were old enough to remember dial tones. The phone, yeah, the dial tones. Handwritten notes. And then the human connection untouched by algorithm, which we live in today, the matrix. The parasites feeding off your energy daily to live. Leeches, bloodsuckers. They need everything that you got to live. How much of it do you give? How much of it do you actually freely serve? And she spoke on AI. Here's the kicker. AI has been around before boomers. CERN. 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 LHC. LHC. Check it out. Just check it out. And what also was reaching, they say, she's still talking about boomers. She was saying how the millennials, how they was caught in two different worlds. And it was, she said, they were young enough to be thrown head first. This is considered AI again. It was young enough to be thrown head first into a digital world moving faster than the nervous system could catch up to. How much do we understand about the nervous system? That's another question. WHAT, World Health, Academia, and Time in full effect. What do you know about the nervous system? If understood, how much do we take seriously? Spiritually even? Energy even? We'll get there if we want to. Only if you want to. Decision making. Decision making. And then the millennial was a generation told to dream bigger. The sky is the limit, right? Watching mental exhaustion normalized. Mental exhaustion normalized. Then millennials became the translator caught between two worlds. Get the confusion? Caught between two worlds. The newly introduced social media, internet world, techish, from the old world, handwritten notes, pencil, dial tones, telephones. When I say Instagram, I ain't talking about the social media Instagram. I'm talking about tick, click, tick, click, 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 click. He said, what is he doing? A boomer and an Xer, and possibly a millennial can interpret what I was just doing and making reference to. For the Zer and Alpha, you in another world now. This is a whole new world for you. So if that be the millennial, she says 1 foot in humanity, yet recall the curse was already set in place. Here she go again, dealing with a curse. Look in our neighborhood. And it's sad. It's sad. I think about like, hey, is just going through a loss in her family. And a lot of people that may be listening right now, if you haven't suffered loss in your family recently, even you've suffered loss in your family, how long did you actually marinate on that and think about it and reflect? Did you do it longer? Then maybe your energy went to Carmelo Anthony or Nolan Wells, which is going on this 3rd week, almost a month, feeding the energy. When you lost a loved one in your family, how long did you hold to this daily reflecting as we do with those that we never knew in our life? Don't know anything about them, just only what we are told about these people. And we go from there and give them as much energy as we have, rather than putting that same energy into your family, into your neighborhood, so we can deal with this gap here from this writing of K that I'm sitting here looking at, that was so well eloquently penned and heartfelt, then getting caught up in a world today, the algorithm that she spoke of as well. And now we talk about people that we never knew in our lives. We would never know them, but there are people that were a part of our lives every day. How much attention did we give that loved one or that individual that so needed it? Where do you put your energy? Where do you put your hard fought emotion and love for those that you really say you're concerned about? Most people that's talking about Carmelo and most people that's talking about Nolan, how can you have love for them and you don't have love for one in your own family? Let me, perception again. What do you see? Perception. What do you see? See, I see one thing. You may see another. And the question is then asked, who's right? Who's wrong? That means you got to look at it closer. You got to look at it through the lenses of truth, not what appears to be an illusion which we are being sold on a daily. What else did Kay say? Because when she said it was caught up between two worlds, and she said good to confusion, I thought about Y2K when it rolled over. Because, you know, we got to 1999, a lot of us were so fearful we never knew what was going to happen. We never saw 2026 coming. Here we are in 2026, 1999, that was 27 years ago. Y2K had a lot of people so afraid, and look where we are now today. Get the picture? Perception. What do you see? She said, 1 foot in humanity, as we continue to talk about the millennials, yet recall the curse was already set in place. 1 foot in hyper-connectedness, innovation, emotionally aware, adaptive, creative enough to build with nothing. Yet, here's the kicker, anxious and overstimulated, burnt out from performing strength while privately unraveling. They're doing it in private. I don't want you to see that I'm hurt. I don't want you to see that I don't understand. I don't want you to see that I need guidance. I need instruction. No structure in my life. I need something. No, we're going to privately unravel. I'm good. I'm blessed and highly favored. I've been blessed by the best. And your life is falling apart. And you have a generation looking at you. Gen X, upset with baby boomers. You had a generation looking at you, which will be millennials. Millennials, upset with Gen X. You have a generation looking at you, which will be Gen Z. Gen Z, you are upset with the millennials. You have a generation looking at you, which will be Generation Alpha. It's in the DNA. Mm-hmm. And then here we go with Gen Z. Arrived, hyper-aware, children raised beneath bright screens and breaking headlines. Look at that pad in that baby's hand, that phone in that baby's hand. Guess what else? Taught activism before adulthood. Isn't that something? Visibility before identity. Explain that to me. Awareness before emotional stability. These are Gen Zers. Huh? And then it said fearlessly expressive. They fearlessly expressive. They'll do things at the drop of a dime. That's why they offering each other every day through their emotions. They are fearlessly expressive. They do it physically in most cases. And then they say creative, fast thinking, socially conscious. Here goes the kicker again. Yet, drowning in comparison. Who's the best? I want to be like who? I want to be like this. I want to be like that. Overstimulation. Got your head stuck in games, and the games has become a reality to you. Loneliness. You think you got a friend that you met on social media. That's your best friend. So I join the game. And then it said, in the pressure to become someone before discovering who they truly are. I'm going to be this person, although I don't know whether I can do that or not. Everybody wants to be a basketball star. Either they want to be a basketball star, or their parents want them to be a basketball star. I got a kicker for you. Do you understand that it's only been roughly 5,000 people that ever played in the NBA, and you got millions upon millions of men, young men, wanting to get on that basketball court in the NBA. 5,000. 5,000 people. Does that tell you something? Come on, man. 5,000 people during the course of the entire NBA is all that's been able to get on that floor and run up and down. And you got millions of young men sold the dream that they can become the basketball star or the NBA person. Isn't that just something? They don't even know who they are. They don't even know who they are. See? This is Gen Z. After all that was said, it said yet they drowning in comparison, overstimulation, loneliness, and the pressure to become someone before discovering who they truly are. And here we go. Oh no. And Generation Alpha may become fluent in tech because they got that pad in their hand in front of somebody's computer, got a phone in their hand. But they're starving for presence. They're not seen. Every generation inherits both a gift and a curse, which is wonderfully said. I'm going to say that again. Every generation inherited both a gift and a curse. Some inherited discipline but lost softness. Freedom but lost direction. Connection to the world but lost disconnection from self. That's each generation. Don't play with this, man. Somewhere along the way, humanity stopped sitting with itself. It relaxed on the shelf. We will learn to scroll faster than we learn to heal. Scrolling through this phone, looking for something in the algorithm, in the matrix, letting the parasite drain you of all of your energy, all of your thoughts. Everything that you got to give positive takes it from you and feeds you the negative, and then in turn you take the negative and go give it to someone else. It said branding before productivity while starving emotionally, overinformed, yet spiritually exhausted. How do you become spiritually exhausted? What spirit are you dealing with? Where the hell was the peace for any generation is the question, she said. The power of rest, relaxation, and peace. Attention granted before affection. Overexposed yet unseen. Overstimulated yet emotionally numb. Spiritually thirsty in a world overflowing with too much noise. And that we do have. Overstimulated yet emotionally numb. Spiritually thirsty in a world overflowing with too much noise. All this fake info that's going before people. And you take it and run with it. You will not let anything unfold. You will not research nothing. You will get in your emotions. That's what you will do. And you will just take that thing and run with it. Just like the Gen Zer, she said, how they are fearlessly expressive. You will get that thing and you will run with it as if it's truth written all over it, and you will be one to start spreading false and fake information. Is it because that's what you like and desire and that's all you have? Come on, man. 1 year in, a nation wounded, as Kay speak. Here we are. What do? And she says, and now here we stand. Generations staring at one another from opposite sides of a river. And the first thing I thought about it was a nation divided. Because river, the Paleo Hebrew meaning for river, whenever you're reading, for those that do read scripture, it expresses a nation. When you look at the word river, the Paleo Hebrew meaning of river is a nation. So she said, and now here we stand, generations staring at one another from opposite sides of a river or a nation. Each side believing the other simply chose wrong. The blame game. Adam, where art thou? I'm hiding. Why are you hiding, Adam? I'm naked. Who told you you was naked, Adam? That woman you gave me. So he blames the woman. Now the question get directed to the woman. Woman, what hast thou done? Well, it was the serpent. And he told me if I did this or that, I will become this or that. She blames the serpent. So the blame game is as old could be. And she says each side believing the other side simply chose wrong. While ignoring the storm, they survive to stay afloat. They ain't got no attention on what's bringing the divide, the storm. They just survive to stay afloat because we're going to keep doing this over and over and over. The blame game continues. Is he talking about Adam and Eve? I'm talking about an event somewhat 6,000 years ago in a place where people were. And a certain group of people was supposed to have been separated from this other group of people. And it was mandated that they would not listen to not a serpent, but a man, a lying man, a double-tongued man, telling both truth and lies only to deceive you. Perception. What do you see now? Are you sure? Is it clear? Can you distinguish? Okay. While they was ignoring the storm, they survived just to stay afloat. And now here we stand, generations staring at one another like strangers on opposite sides of a river. Now we become strangers. Gen X a stranger to baby boomers. Millennials a stranger to Gen Xers. Gen Z is a stranger to millennials. Alpha become strangers to Gen Z. And we just staring at each other. And now here we stand, a generation staring at one another like strangers on opposite side of a river. Each believing the other side simply chose wrong and differently, wanted to hurt you. It's like I did this intentionally. I marched and I let them spray water on me and I let them sick dogs on me to hurt you. Or did I do it to empower you to get to another level? Yeah, I followed after this and I followed after that and I wanted to integrate. Bad decision. Y'all shouldn't have did that. Well, how are you going to fix it? In what way? Are you going to fearlessly express your feelings, your emotions? That's how you do it. Perception. And it says not the case in some. While ignoring the storm, they survive just to stay afloat. You the problem. But what are you? When you say you the problem, what are you saying? Gen X, baby boomers, you the problem. Millennials, Gen X is you the problem. Gen Zers, millennial, you the problem. And then come Alpha, looking at Zers. Gen Zers, you the problem. The question is, who's the solution? She asked again, what is the solution? We get the history now. And she go on to say, do not come for me. Because while ignoring the storm, each side survived just to get there. Whatever it took, they survived just to get to that point to where they got. However, we still have a divide, don't we? And this what happened. Each one suffered pain. And she go on to say pain changes language. Yeah, that's how we talk and deal with to each other. Pain changes parenting. Yeah, my child not gonna go through what I went through. Pain changes love. No, that ain't love. Me and my child, we best friends. We ain't, that's how we get along. My child is my best friend. Yeah, I'm gonna keep walking it down. Perception. See what role you play. And they say pain changes entire people and generations. Man. So after the blame game is done, after the 5 H's initiated and witnessing, what can we actually become? What can we become after you deal with the hard part of the truth, the hurtful part of the truth, and allowing the truth to help you, which will make you healthy and eventually heal this thing? What part of that will you become? And she goes to understanding the weather in each other's storm. And she say, read that again. We got to understand the weather in each other's storm. The greatest generation went through a storm. The silent generation went through a storm. The baby boomers went through a storm. Gen Xers went through a storm. When they was introduced to the chemicals, the drugs, the discos. And then it affected another generation. The millennials went through a storm. And dealing with those exes that was up under that influence of that intoxicant, that poison, that not only robbed them of their mind, but their spirit, causing them to almost lose their souls. And then Gen Z going through a storm. Because the millennials say, my child is not going to go through this, and my child is not going to see this, and my child is going to be my friend. However, your child is your friend. In Memphis, a young lady just unalived this young man by, she caught him in the house with a 13-year-old daughter, and the young man, allegedly 20 years old. She allowed the young man to get away from up under the bed and let the young man go out the house, and then she did away with him in the front of her house. And people have a lot to say about that. The first thing I thought was the respect between that mother and that daughter was lost. Some kind of way it got lost in the gap. And not only that, That mother knew the actions of her 13-year-old daughter because, as from what I heard, and I haven't looked a lot about it in this case, I just kind of go a little bit off what Kel say or Kay say, and then whatever, I take it from there. But I'm just saying, when she warned her daughter, if I catch someone in here, I'm going to do this. So that lets you know that she was already aware of what her daughter was doing. And now I've heard this all could be still rumor, because you remember the algorithm, people be throwing stuff online. You don't know what to believe until it really unfolds. But I was told that the young lady has really gone out dissing her mama, saying rest in peace to the young man that was taken away, because she's claiming now that she might even be pregnant with this young man's baby. And mom's now facing time, call herself protecting her daughter. Who's going to protect that daughter now, since you did that heinous act? Where were you? Why was your daughter at home alone, 13 years old? Oh, I was working. Yeah, I get it. That's that career woman, that independent woman. Is it? Could it be the one that don't need a man? Could be. I don't know. Or is that single parent? I don't get along with men that well. I can do me well. I can do me by myself. It don't. I can be my mother. I mean, I can be my kid's mother and father. That's what we are. Some kind of way, everything got lost while we were ignoring the storm. We also just survived just to stay afloat. Didn't deal with the storm. No. No. No, no, no. Let's just stay afloat. And as she actually continued to say, we have to understand the weather in each other's storm. Because if we examine the wounds, including the greatness of each generation, if we examine the wounds, including the greatness of each generation, we would have known where to begin. But we didn't do that. We had too much animosity. We had too much pushback. We had too much anger. That's the only way we could come together, if we understand the greatness of each generation. We other than that, we can't come together. We can keep pointing out the failures and the flaws and what should have, could have been. But the generation behind you just may do the same. And how will you feel about that? Perception. What do you see now? So we're going to end this off. She said, listen, so the question is no longer just who ruins society. The story was already written before the characters before us came into play. Story already written. You going to play your role? Or are you going to get cast out? Cast out. You're no longer a part of this cast. You're no longer a part of this play. You're no longer a part of this activity. And the real question is, as Kay closes this out, which gap are you willing to fill? Ask yourself that question. Will you become a bridge? Ask yourself that question. Or will slumber become the decider for you? A whole lot was said in this writing. So I ain't going to try to unpack it no more. It really spoke for itself. I just wanted to say a few things that I thought I saw out of it and got out of it. And, I can see a lot of things in here, man. World War I, World War II, Deuteronomy chapter 28. I can see the crack epidemic. Man, I'm telling you, I can see when she was talking about the people that lost their voices. I can see the Gen X generation where a lot of leaders was being taken away from us. Man, you know, and then when she talked about AI, how it's been around like forever, and we think it just got here. Just like that new phone you think you just got, that new iPhone. The new iPhone you just bought is the old iPhone. The new iPhone that you just bought, they had that iPhone 5 years ago. They just decided to sell it to you now. That's all. You ain't up on nothing. You ain't up to date with nothing. You're going to stay behind the 8 ball. CERN, I talked about. CERN. Yeah. Mix AI in with CERN. 2 machines. That's all I'm going to give you. 2 machines. Not AI. Remember? AGI. And by the time CERN is back up and running, ASI will be in full effect. A lot of you probably don't know anything about CERN. I thought about Y2K when she said we was caught into 2 worlds. And then I thought about the rap culture for Generation Z, how she was saying that, they were anxious and overstimulated and they was burnt out from performing strength while privately unraveling. I thought about the rap culture. Give me control of a nation's music and I care not who makes its laws. And she was talking about how Gen Z, how they was taught activism before adulthood and visibility before identity. I thought about indoctrination in academia in the educational system. I thought about them being crack induced from that drug that was thrown in our neighborhood. And then when she was talking about them also not understanding who they really were, I thought about educational academia again, indoctrination, misdirected. And then we got a place in here where mental illness can fit in, fake news, a divided nation, and a storm that you've been led to cross over a river or a body of water, which is knowledge and understanding. And you've been made to cross over that water and you crash in the middle of it because their understanding no longer helps you. The understanding no longer resonate in your being. The understanding no longer resonate in your mind. And then being in a strange land. Kay did it. That was her writing. It was wonderful. We're going to close this one out, man. When I come back, we're going to try to do what we said we're going to do. And that's what we try to do. Talk about what we say we're going to talk about. Do what we say we're going to do. Be who you say you are. Quit faking. We're going to get some more people up on this. Until then, I want you to also just look at Kay Miller today, and hopefully Kay going to say a little something on behind this for audio to how she came to actually penning this particular writing here that comes exclusively and it's original from Kay, her writings. That's what we're gonna do today. That's the end of what we're gonna do today. We a year in, and we still a nation wounded. Kay has spoken. Harris family, stand tall. Come together. Be strong in this moment. It's nothing wrong with grieving, but understand that each person grieve in their own way. And until then, I want to say thank you guys for listening. We want you to like, subscribe, hit that notification button. We like to see you back with us and continue this journey. We're about to start going in now because we're a year in. And seriously, we are starting and we'll begin to cross into deep waters. Don't let the people lead you wrong. You think they care about you. You really got a group of people you think they care about you. That same group of people might be the one that leads you to your demise. Once again, as I always say, appreciate you for joining us. And I'm out of here. What the flux.
Everyone, it's hard to believe it's officially been 1 year since Jay and I began this journey of starting a podcast. Happy 1 year anniversary to this channel. I've had the privilege of watching Jay pour his heart into this vision. He's worked very, very tirelessly because he's passionate about bridging the gap between generations through meaningful conversations. As part of celebrating this milestone, Jay asked if I could share a poem that I wrote on Mother's Day with you all. Writing this poem brought out so many emotions, much more than I actually expected. Like many writers, I went through several drafts before I felt it was truly reflecting on what was on my heart. It's been a long time since I picked up the pen, a pencil, or even sat behind a keyboard simply to write from my soul. Today, I hope these words reach someone who needs them. I hope they touch your heart and remind you that some of the deepest wounds are often the ones no one can see. So thank you for listening.